You need to understand their mindset. They have to take care of the business of settling this estate. It's a legal process and they're on a timeline. So they have to do it. But when they get ready to do it, it might be 2 months, it might be 4 months, and it might be the case where it's coming up on 12 months and their attorney has said, look, we have to close this estate. And they call you up and go, listen, I have to sell this house this week, which is, of course, your best case scenario. But they're going to contact you when they're ready.
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
Sharon Vornholt began investing in 1998, starting out as a rehabber and a buy and hold landlord. She became an accidental wholesaler in 2008 when the market crashed. And Sharon is best known as a probate expert and for her expertise in marketing and branding. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sam. I'm excited to be here.
The pleasure's mine. Same 3 questions I ask every guest who comes on the show. Can you very quickly tell us in 90 seconds or less, where did you start? Where are you now? And how did you get there?
Well, I started out my earliest years as a child. My dad was a general contractor, and being the oldest of 4 children, he would drag me along. I was also the best behaved. He would drag me along. And that's where I learned to love the construction process. But I worked in other fields. But in 1991, I opened a home inspection company. And that's when I met a lot of realtors. And one day a realtor came in and said, do you want to go to a RIA meeting? And I said something like, what's a RIA meeting? I did not know at that point that you could do real estate in a way that was, and not be an agent. So that's where I got my beginnings. And once I went to one meeting, then I was just sold on it. So I just tried different things, did a lot of different things, and just kept changing things up as I went along.
Wow. That's fantastic. It's funny you mentioned that you might not have known that there was other things besides being a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that even on the single family side, I always ran into. Even as an investor, it was the most real estate agents didn't understand who is an investor and how do I serve them.
Nope.
So that's really fascinating. So today, what does your business look like today?
Well, after almost 25 years, just about, I have as I said, I was rehabbing, I was doing some buy and hold, and then when in 2008, I switched to wholesaling because, as you know, it was the best of times and the worst of times. And over the years, probably the past 5 or 6 years, I've focused primarily on helping other people grow their businesses. I'm passionate about probate investing because you get to help so many people. It's a very misunderstood niche, and it's a constant, never-ending stream of leads. But you have to, I always like to say, marketing is how you get leads, but branding is why they choose you. So you have to tie those 3 things together, no matter which strategies, whether it's multifamily, it doesn't really matter. You need those pieces.
Can you say that one more time? Marketing is how you get leads.
But branding is why they choose you over your competition.
That's really fascinating. When I think of probate, I generally think of single family properties. But as I think about it a little bit more, I'm sure you encounter all sorts and classes of real estate.
There are all sorts. And I've always focused on single family. That's where my sweet spot is. But certainly it's amazing the people that have not done estate planning. It's just profoundly disappointing that these people that a commercial building ends up in probate. It's just crazy, but they do. So there are people out there, think of Prince, who died with no will, go figure. So there are those people. So certainly I would say they are definitely probably fewer and far between, but there are definitely those properties, all classes of commercial property.
Right. I mean, that goes hand in hand with back when I was in single family buying at the foreclosure auctions. You'd have never thought that some of the houses that came up that were $1 million, $2 million plus at the foreclosure auction, you're like, wait, I would have thought that a person that could afford this would have done the right planning in place to make sure they didn't lose their home, but that just simply wasn't the case.
It's not the case.
Not the case. Yeah, that's fascinating. Walk us through the probate process. I mean, what does that mean? How does that work? I know this is different in every state, but I'm sure you've got a pretty firm understanding of the general guidelines across the country. So can you explain?
Yeah, it's both the same and different. So it's a straight line process. Now, if your state may have a few rules or a few procedures that vary, but basically it's the same everywhere. So when someone passes away, they're going, if they own property there, it's almost certainly going to go into probate unless they're smarter and they've put everything in a trust, which sidesteps the whole probate process. But most people just simply don't do that. So someone passes away, and then at some point, maybe months down the road, the family decides to open the estate. And that's a process where you get an attorney and they actually go to court and they formally open the estate. Now, at that stage, a number of things are going to happen. If there's a will, it would say, Sam is my executor. So you are what I call the decision maker. But a lot of people don't have a will, and then the court has to appoint an administrator. These two people jointly are referred to as the personal representative. The thing to understand is that person or the person, sometimes it's like a brother and a sister, they are the decision maker, and they are the only people that can sell that property. So they take over for the deceased. Now, once that happens, the property and any assets in the estate, they're converted to cash. And so the assets are sold, the creditors are paid, and then the heirs get what's left. So if you're going down the line, you can see that the properties are sold about in the middle of the process, because the creditors, well, who are they? Well, sometimes elderly people, they take out a home equity line. They might have car payments, credit cards, certainly things like funeral expenses, hospital bills, attorney fees, anything. So everybody gets paid. And you look down here, the heirs, the people that stand to inherit, they're the last people in line, the very last. What that means is that they're very motivated to get this whole process done, because they don't want the property. Who wants to inherit a property that needs $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in repairs and updates? Nobody. They don't want to keep the heat on in wherever the house is located. But they've got, somebody has to do all of that. So they are among the very most motivated sellers on the planet. And hands down, they've been my most lucrative deals over, since 2008 when I discovered probates.
That's fascinating. Where because again, in a earlier life, we certainly mined probate leads, but where in the process does that probate docket get inserted where then you can start figuring out what's going on? Like when we went down and we're pulling those papers, where in the process does that generally show up?
Well, when the people open the probate, which could be, it might be next week. I had one whose dad was barely buried and he opened the probate. They didn't get along, but usually it's some months down the line. But once that is opened, then the people are raising their hand and they're saying, I'm ready to sell the property. That's what they're saying. I'm ready to move forward. Now, you might check in your area because you are in Tennessee. I know in Nashville, they're online. I don't know offhand about Memphis. No. In Louisville, Kentucky, they're in the newspaper. So, and believe me, if you're in New Jersey, you're going to go to the courthouse. If you're in Fort Lauderdale, you're going to walk down to the courthouse. So I would say check. If you want to know how the probate leads are available in your area, and understand there are over 3,300 counties in the US, and every single county is different. So Google probate plus your county, probate plus your city. Start there. Look in the newspaper. Same, it'd be the same where the legal notices are, like for foreclosures. They'll be back in there. Talk to your local real estate attorney and say, where are these leads in my area? Just do a little detective work, because I'll tell you, 95% of the people are not going to get to that step.
Right. What's an effective way once you have discovered, hey, they've opened a probate case? I mean, do you know at that point if there's even real estate attached to it?
Generally, there will be real estate. Yeah. Our process was kind of really an old-fashioned process. I had somebody that just looked on the tax assessor site to verify there was property. And to look, and on our tax assessor site, there's a picture of the property and a lot of information. Right. So the person doing that at that time was my daughter when we first started, and she would go, yes, heck no, yes, no. So it was very streamlined, but you can teach anyone to do that. I invest in these zip codes, not these, throw these out, but there's no magic button for that one. But in general, look on your Google what a small estate is in your state. In my state, anything under $50,000 that doesn't have property, it's not going to go through probate. So if you get up there, I mean, most things in probate will have property, because otherwise, unless they've got yachts or something, what are they going to put in probate, or a ton of money?
Right. That makes that makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Mhm.
What's your
Mhm.
method for reaching out? Do you do direct mail? Are you skip
Mhm.
tracing and cold calling? What's your process?
No, no cold calling. Let me tell you, I always tell this: somebody's mom or dad, don't call these people. That's Sharon's rule for success. You I have a sequence of letters, and it's very I like to address the elephant in the room right up front. People go, I don't want to say anything. You can do that. You can act like you don't know there's been a death, but these people are going to call you up, and I know this from experience. They're going to call you up and say, Sam, how did you get my address? How did you know to mark it to me? So on from my end, my thinking is that I'd rather address it up front and say, I know this might not be the perfect time for you. This is what we do, and basically, you're telling them, I'll be here when you're ready. So it's a sequential letter, mail everybody every month, as long as the estate is still open. And that's the process. But it's very low key marketing, very specific type of marketing. And it's not unusual for people to open the estate and then they look around, they've still got mom's house is still full of stuff, or dad's still got a collector of whatever. They have to clean out the house. So they're dealing with a couple of things. You need to understand their mindset. They have to take care of the business of settling this estate. It's a legal process and they're on a timeline. So they have to do it. But when they get ready to do it, it might be 2 months, it might be 4 months, and it might be the case where it's coming up on 12 months and their attorney has said, look, we have to close this estate. And they call you up and go, listen, I have to sell this house this week, which is, of course, your best case scenario. But they're going to contact you when they're ready. And
Mm.
that's the key, is there's no getting to it first in probate. You need to start marketing to them as soon as the estate's open, and then just be a resource for them, and just check in with them every month. How's it coming?
That's absolutely intriguing. What and again, I think the thing that's wild about this is that it can transcend all asset classes because you never know. You
Mhm.
never
You
know
don't.
what, and I know you've stuck with single family, but this process, remains the same
Mhm.
for whether or not you're looking for commercial assets, residential assets, and again, I know commercial residential can be far fewer on the commercial side, but it does exist. So, and even furthermore, if very few people are hunting for it in that department, it's even a better place to be. What prevents a lot of these people from just going out and just hiring a real estate agent and saying, "Hey, sell the house"?
Some will. Some will. If they're nicer houses, pretty houses, they will. But not all of them will. And I'll tell you why, because I call them time and circumstances problems. If you are the executor and you're a busy executive, or you've got some type of high powered job and you're in San Diego and the estate is on the East Coast, you're most likely going to look at the time lost from your job to get this house listed, fly back and forth, or talk on the phone to realtors. I've gotten some really good deals that involve this exact thing, where I call time and circumstances. They know they're getting less for their house, but they don't care. They just want it done. They want to get it done and move on with their life. And that's the reason we are such a valuable resource to them. They are just so grateful they're done.
Has probate changed? I mean, with we were going on a 10, 11, whatever it is, bull market run. Has that changed the way probate, has it changed the dynamics inside of probate at all?
The only thing that has changed is like in 2008, I was literally getting deals that needed um, two windows and a countertop as wholesale deals, because it was a buyer's market. It was a buyer's market.
Right.
So, but today it's a seller's market. So you can put houses that are not in as good of condition on the MLS. So that's the only dynamic that affects probate. But I'll tell you why you should work probates right now. And that is because the courts have been shut down for how long? Year and a half.
Yeah.
And even, yeah, I mean, our courts are still not open fully. Eviction court is still on Zoom here. It's
Yeah.
still backed up for months. So what happened in March of, I guess, seems like forever ago, 2020, was
Was.
that, yeah, I think that's right. Some people had to open the probate, and just like that, the court shut down 100%. So they were stuck. All the people who passed away then, they couldn't even file. So there is a huge backlog of probates,
Wow.
huge backlog. So as the courts start to open, and I talked to a friend in Chicago the other day, and their courts are still not even open 50%. These cases are all stuck back here. And understand that if it's in probate, the laws of your state dictate that the assets will be sold, the creditors will be paid, and then the heirs get what's left before the estate is closed. So none of this can move forward until all of this happens.
Wow. That's got to be entirely frustrating on
Oh,
the
yeah.
executors of these estates. I mean,
Yeah.
that's because what if the market turns? You could have sold it 12 months ago, and then now they're selling it for far less. Maybe they could have before. Lots of what ifs there, but that's just one of the probably many things I haven't thought of the rest of them. But that's an interesting point that you say that there's an enormous need, but yet can they even get those sales approved? Let's say
You know, yes. And the probate is open and it moves through that a part where they issue something called the letters, and that's where they say Sam gets a stamp of approval to be the executor. So once that happens, the property can be sold. And
Okay.
as an investor, you don't care about the rest of it.
Right.
You only care about getting your deal. Now in Kentucky and in Illinois and most states, it is just like any other deal, Sam. There's nothing special. Now, there are a few states, California is one, where they have certain properties that need an appraisal. That's not the case in most states. It is like any other deal. You just make sure that executor, the personal representative, signs the contract, and then get your close. We close with attorneys here. Do you all close with attorneys?
We do here in Tennessee. That's right.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So get your attorney involved. And people think they need to know a lot of legal stuff. You really don't. You need to know how the process works. You need to know some of the terminology to simply have a conversation that is a smart conversation. But beyond that, I like to say that's why God made attorneys. They do all that stuff. And if there's a problem with the estate, they're going to discover it when they do the title search. You don't have to worry about any of that. You just send it over like any other contract.
Right. That's absolutely fascinating. What are some I guess you gave me some good key pointers early on, which was to, make sure that you're upfront as to where you got the information and
Mhm.
just put it out there like it is. Do letters, don't call. I mean,
Mhm.
that also sounds great. There's some other things that come to mind. You say, hey, here's some good tactical and practical things that people should be doing.
Yeah, I think people think of probates, investors. They are reluctant to go into that because they think they're going to have to talk about the death. Trust me, nobody's going to really talk about that. When you go to see these people, think of it as having a conversation. That really and truly is what it is. This is where you really need to be able to build rapport. And I teach this because it's really simple once you understand it. These people, they need to sell the house. They often have big memories with the house. Maybe
Right.
they grew up in the house and they want to tell you about, here's all the marks when I was growing up. But if you look around the house, if you've done it right, you've talked to them, you've sent them the right marketing piece, you've gotten the appointment, then you go in the house and you just simply say, look around for visual clues. I tell people, look for visual clues. And you would say, tell me about the house. And you see the golf clubs in the corner and their dad has passed away. You might say, was your dad the golfer? Or you see cookbooks in the kitchen. Hey, was your mom the cook? And then they tell you what they need to get off their chest. So you need to be a good listener. They're not going to talk about the terrible way they died. They're going to say, yes, Mom, this was the house we all grew up in, and all the people came and she cooked. And then you'll know when it's time. And you just say, would you like to tell me about the house and show me around?
Mhm.
It really is that simple.
That's great. That's absolutely great. Are there any gotchas or things that you would say these are just kind of some buyer beware or things that we should be paying attention to that are unique to probate?
One thing that I learned from my attorney, we talked about they're normally just a regular deal. If the family is trying to do the probate themselves, you can go to court and they'll give you a stack of papers and they'll say, do these things in this order. Well, you and I both know nobody does that.
Right.
So if they're trying to do that, then your attorney's likely going to come back and say, they missed this paper. We've got to now do this and this and this and get them on track. So I had a 5-month closing one time. The only time this has ever happened, I'm set out the contract like I usually would. I put extra time in it, and they just mucked up the whole probate process. I had to keep going back to them and getting an extension. And at any moment in time, somebody could have gotten in the middle of that deal and said, "Hey, I'll give you $1,000 more,"
Right.
because it was a low end house. So I went back to my closing attorney, who's also an investor. That's a piece of advice: use an attorney that's an investor. And I said, "What can I do to prevent this?" And he said, "We're going to put a piece, put this in every probate closing, and you should really make note of this. When you say you're closing, I usually would put no sooner than 14 days or no longer than, I put a little longer time, maybe 40 days in a probate, 45. But then you put upon court/attorney approval, which leaves your contract open-ended forever until the court says the house can be sold. So you put that in there, you bypass that whole horrible thing I had for 5 months. So closing will be between 15 and 30 days upon court/attorney approval to sell. And then
Wow.
you're protected.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And that also would prevent, I would imagine, getting extensions signed and just all the rest of the stuff that goes into it. So
All of it.
it's amazing what a small clause in a contract, can do to relieve a lot of tension.
Mhm.
That's really, really fascinating. Sharon, thank you for coming on the show today and really kind of pulling back the curtains on probate and a niche in the industry that you seem to have
Mhm.
perfected. This was lots and lots of fun. I know that you have a probate course that you have taught in the past, and this is something I think you're bringing back to market. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The course is an online. It's recorded. It's a 6 module course, and I have all of the marketing materials in there that you'll ever need, whether you're an agent or an investor. I have all of the letters for each, whichever way you want to go. And some people, I have the agents that work probates just as agents. So I include that, and I also teach you how to do direct mail the correct way and how to do it for these people, because you really cannot call these people, and don't go knock on their door, because they're sad and they will write your name on a big board in their house and you will never get the deal. But the course is called Probate Investing Simplified. If you follow it, you'll learn everything you need to know. The one thing you do need to do on your own is figure out how to get the leads in your area. There's simply no magic button for that one. I wish there was, but there's not.
Right. And I've even heard there's even services out there I know that will find and deploy people locally. Like if you're here in Shelby County, I know it's at the courthouse. You have to physically go there and pull the papers. But there was even, I heard them on a podcast, this is years ago, but they actually deploy people locally to go out and pull those records for you, which is really interesting if you're not local. I can't remember what that was, but a very intriguing service
I
indeed.
think there's a way around that. I'll have to check on that for you.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Sharon, I enjoyed you coming on today. Let's jump here into the final 4 questions. The first one is this: what is one digital tool or resource you find you can't live without?
My computer, my phone. That's pretty obvious. That's it.
Fantastic. Question number 2: if you could help our listeners avoid one mistake in real estate, what would it be and how would you avoid it?
You focus on branding yourself right from the beginning. If you're brand new, you probably think you don't need to be building a brand, but remember, branding is what makes them choose you. So you focus on that.
Yep, absolutely. Question number 3: when it comes to investing in the world, what's one thing you're doing right now to make the world a better place?
Giving back. Have a blog and a podcast. I have 900 pieces of content on my blog, so I'm pretty sure you can find it if you're looking for it on there. The Louisville Gals Real Estate blog.
That's incredible. Well done. People don't realize the amount of time and effort it takes to compile that much free content. So thanks for putting that out there. Sharon, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, learn more about you or your probate course, what's the best way to do that?
They can email me at sharon@sharonvornholt.com, or to check out the blog. All the links to the podcast, to the course, everything is off of the blog.
Fantastic. And what was that blog one more time?
It's Louisville Gals Real Estate blog.
Louisville Gals Real Estate blog. Sharon, thank you so much for your time today. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam.